Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. A 17-year-old Pune boy killed two people, two 24-year-old techies on a bike while driving a Porsche at high speed and under the influence of alcohol. All this caught on camera, but the boy who was caught was released. He was given bail within 15 hours by the court. He was also asked to write a 300-word essay as well as receive treatment and counselling for alcohol addiction. This is not the first time. In 1999, Delhi saw Sanjeev Nanda killing 6 people with his BMW in a drink and drive case. In 2002, actor Salman Khan was released with a bail of 900 rupees in Mumbai for running over sleeping pavement dwellers. In 2016, Siddharth Sharma in Delhi was killed by a speeding Mercedes that was driven by an underage boy just 4 days short of his 18th birthday. And in 2015, in Mumbai, corporate lawyer Janvi Gadkar was released on bail 2 months after she allegedly killed 2 people in a drunk driving case. What is the law on hit and run? And what is the law for juvenile offenders who are in such hit and run cases? To discuss this, let me start by introducing my guests for the show. Joining me to discuss this are Professor Dhanraj Banjari, former ACP Mumbai Police, Rajneesh Chunni, advocate of the Supreme Court, and my colleague Ashok Bagaria. But I first want to start by showing you 3 statistics first. More than 1.5 lakh people die in India every year due to road accidents. It's the highest death toll anywhere in the world. Now, 75% of these deaths are caused by overspeeding. And finally, the number of persons killed per 100 accidents has been increasing in India from 20.2% in 2000 to 36.5% in 2022. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus show. Ashok, I want to start by looking at the IPC sections that this juvenile drunk and drive case, this boy in this drunk and drive case violated 8 sections. I mean, 304A, death by rash and negligent driving, driving a vehicle in a negligent manner, causing grievous hurt by endangering life. There's cases against the father, the pub, willful neglect of a child. I mean, this is a snapshot of so many cases that we've seen in the recent past.
Well, you're right here. So basically, when you are dealing with such cases of accidents,
yes,
you are primarily booked or accused or charged under 2 provisions of law. One is the Indian Penal Code, and second set is with respect to violation of Motor Vehicles Act.
Right.
Now, as far as the Pune case is concerned, here we are dealing with a case where the child is a minor.
Right.
He is accused, or rather he is charged of killing 2 other young people who were on a bike, moving over them.
Yeah.
And here, the allegation is number 1, he's caused the death.
Right.
So, section 304A is attracted. Then, negligent driving, 279 of the Indian Penal Code is attracted. 337, 338, again, relate to negligent and rash driving at public places. Now, these are as far as the Indian Penal Code provisions are concerned. Now, there are violations with respect to Motor Vehicles Act also. Number 1, this child was driving without a valid license. 3 and 4, violation of Motor Vehicles Act.
Right.
Section 199A. Now, this is something which is of interest to us because 199A was introduced in the Motor Vehicles Act in 2019. There was an amendment.
Yes.
199A was introduced with the objective of fixing vicarious liability of minors to their parents.
Right.
So the idea was, when this particular proviso of law was added, the idea was that the parents who are responsible and who are the guardians of minors should also be held responsible for if their children who are being negligent and cause such accidents. Because at the end of the day, in an accident, precious lives are snuffed out.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what we're talking about here today. And, you know, Ashok, there's this 2016 case of Siddharth Sharma, 32-year-old techie who was hit by a Mercedes and died later. Rajneesh, I want to ask you about this case. You know, this 2016 case, where very similar to the Pune case, where this perpetrator was just 4 days short of his 18th birthday and he ran over and killed Siddharth Sharma. The Supreme Court said that he could not be tried because he was a minor, and that it's been 6 years now. Yeah. That case is still on. You know, what do we do in cases like this when you have a juvenile who runs over someone, who violates multiple provisions of the IPC, but still gets away very lightly because the law still recognizes him as a juvenile, right? He's not treated as an adult for these particular kinds of cases. Do we need a new law, or we just need enforcement of the existing provisions of the IPC?
Obviously, we need new laws for this particular thing. But before I proceed any further, I would like to, I'm totally dejected by what has happened day before yesterday. And
yes.
my heart goes to the family, to the whole family, and to the departed soul also. Now, what my learned colleague was saying, my learned friend was saying, see, what has happened after 2012, the Nirbhaya case. Now, in 2015, there was an amendment in the Juvenile Justice Act.
Yes.
Now, in the Juvenile Justice Act, Section 15 has come into picture. Now, Section 15 talks about a person who can be a child with the conflict of law can be considered as an adult.
Yes.
Who's between age to 16 to 18 years. Now, in this, we have one rider, one embargo. That embargo is that if the punishment is more than 7 years.
Right.
Now, what Pune police has charged this particular delinquent, or I would rather say that, you know, the abashed person, this child, he has been charged with Section 304A, if I'm not mistaken, whatever I have read in the newspapers and all, in the news and all. Now, 304 Part A is only punishable with 2 years.
Right.
Number one is this. Now, number two is we are talking about another section also, which is Section 279, which is obviously for the rash and negligent driving, which is again punishable for 6 months.
Right.
Now, the very important, very pertinent question is, will this juvenile be treated as an adult only because of the reason he has not charged with Section 304 Part 2?
Right.
This is what has happened in the case of Salman Khan, if I am not mistaken. So ideally, what should have happened is that even though they have gone to the session court, they are challenging, they are assailing whatever the perverse thing has been done by the, I would rather term it as a very perverse, what has been done by the Juvenile Justice Board, which is constituted under Section 4. Because for them there was no reason they could have sent this particular, you know, I would rather call him as a criminal who was on the wheels, who was moved down through young life. He could have sent to the remand home. He would have kept him there till the outcome of this particular, whatever his age, his psychology test, whether he should have been treated as an adult or he should not. This particular guy should not have been treated as an adult. Now, what happens in this is, in such cases, we question the constitution of the body, right? What I mean to say is that, the whole members who are part of this particular committee, the Juvenile Justice Board, we can raise serious questions on them about their ability. I personally don't find there was any good reason for them to immediately grant the bill, and that too with the condition that you write an essay of 300 lines or whatever it is. Do you think he's going to write an essay of 300 lines? Or whatever it is.
Right.
Will this do justice to the departed soul? Obviously not. Now, first of all, before making the law very stringent or coming up with the new laws, what we need to do is the system, the people who are sitting there who are dispensing justice, even they have to be very active. They need to know the law.
Right.
They need to be very informed on the law.
Absolutely.
Nothing will happen. I'm telling you, no skies are going to fall. You come up with any section, our courts are overburdened, nothing is going to happen. As you were stating, what 2016-17 case, whatever the case has happened, it will take its time because obviously the courts are loaded. There are cases which are going on from 1950, 1960, 1970, 1980, still the cases are going on.
70 years, 80, absolutely. And Rajneesh, is a very pertinent point that you mentioned, the fact that our courts are so overburdened with cases that just like this 2016 Delhi case and the Pune case seems to be a very eerie replay of that 2016 case, and that case is still 8 years later, it's still doing the rounds. We're still waiting for justice. Professor Vanjari, must the Pune juvenile accused be tried as an adult, as the Pune police are asking for?
It's a totally a responsibility of an investigating agency. And as I know, 37 years I worked in Mumbai Police and retired as ACP. I tell you, a recent trend, as per the Honorable Supreme Court, has established in some POXO cases where
Right, right.
it was judged according to the age factor and age limit. It was
Yeah,
judged whether the person is capable to make independent decision.
right.
Minor and major,
Yes.
parent and the juvenile.
Yeah.
This equation comes when the juvenile or a minor is not in condition to make his own decision. Now,
Right.
looking into the age of this man, his psychological profiling is a
Yes.
must for investigating agency.
Right.
As I
Right.
spoke to few friends in the department in Pune Police who are remotely connected with this investigation,
Yeah.
they assured, yes, what you say is a very sensible thing, and get from the court established that
Right.
he should not be treated or no more be treated as a juvenile. So,
Yes.
moment he becomes stops to become a juvenile, he
Yeah.
becomes accused. As on today, even in the legal language, you cannot address him as accused. He
Right.
is a juvenile,
Juvenile.
boy juvenile. You can
Absolutely.
call him a juvenile. That is
Yes.
the only thing. Now, this section 304 है culpable homicide amounting to murder
Yeah.
out of the Rash and Negligence Act, whereas all other sections and has been applied.
Yeah.
Now, very conspicuously, as the first panelist has spoken,
Yes.
the provision of Motor Vehicle Act, which
Right.
bestow the responsibility not only on parents but on the owner of the vehicle. In every
Yeah.
case, it's not necessary that it's a parental vehicle. There might be a vehicle he has taken from some friend, or might be a
Yes.
vehicle taken from some uncle or some neighbor or this thing. So, owner of vehicle is also equally important here. But finally, when it goes, I think the whole issue will matter. As you
Yes.
have quoted very nicely the statistics of the past cases of such juveniles,
Yes.
I think who should be treated juvenile, whether the age is the only criteria
Yes.
or his psychological profiling should
Yeah.
be added to it. And it's a new dimension in few cases that's come with Honorable Supreme Court. I think
Yeah.
that parameter should be taken into consideration by investigators.
Absolutely, very, very valid point there, Professor Vanjari. Ashok, how do you psychologically profile someone and ensure that you treat him as per the gravity of his offense?
Well, basically, this is a method basically evolved to figure out. It's a scientific method
Yeah.
based on questionnaires which the particular minor child is subjected to. He is supposed to answer, and the child is also interacts with counselors, psychiatrists, sociologists, and on the basis of that interaction and that questionnaire that minor answers,
Yes.
a conclusion is drawn
Right.
that the understanding of the minor
Yeah.
is that of a minor or is it that of an adult.
Right.
If the court comes to a conclusion that the understanding of the minor is that of an adult,
Right.
that particular juvenile can be tried as an adult. And it has happened, as rightly pointed out, that, you know, in many POXO cases,
Yes.
there have been perpetrators of these heinous offences who are almost on the cusp of minority majority.
So the last time this happened, Ashok, is the Nirbhaya case in December 2012. So
Yeah.
just run us through that case, because a lot of our viewers might not be familiar
So
with
basically, what we were dealing with in Nirbhaya case was there were 5 sets of accused.
Right.
Okay, there were 2 who were minors. So what happens is, the moment, even if a minor is involved in a grievous or a heinous offense of rape and murder, the law recognizes the minor as a juvenile.
Right.
And in legal terms, that particular juvenile is called a child in conflict with law.
Right.
And the whole idea of the Juvenile Justice Act,
Yes.
which is a beneficial piece of legislation,
Right.
and is designed to protect people with understanding of that of a minor, so that when they go back, when they become major,
They're reformed and they go back to society.
and they can get acclimatized or mainstreamed into the society. Now in the Nirbhaya case, again this particular controversy arose and this whole debate started, whether these people, these 2 youngsters who were involved in the rape, should they be treated as adults or minors. Now,
Right.
at least in one case, the Juvenile Justice Board came to a conclusion that the one accused cannot be treated as an adult.
Right.
So, but see, that does not in any way it's very easy for us to sit and speak about the gravity or the
Right.
grievousness of the offense.
Right.
But at the end of the day, there is a system in place, there is a law in place.
Yes.
We'll have to act in the confines of that law.
Right. Rajneesh, you think this, as Professor Vanjari was mentioning, this thing of psychological profiling of juveniles to see whether they can be tried as adults. I mean, how controversial is this? Has this been tried? Are there any moves to ensure that such, serious cases are tried under this?
Yes, see, this is an amendment which has been carried out in the Juvenile Justice Act post 2017, wherein
Yes.
this provision has come into play, wherein it has been stated that a psychological test of a person of the delinquent or the juvenile has to be done. In case of ascertaining whether he is an adult, he has to be treated as an adult or he has to be treated as a juvenile.
Yeah.
But before proceeding any further, if you remember, I was just talking about the Lester Preza case, right? This Lester Preza case happened in 2012.
Yes.
Now it was parallel on this particular case. See what will happen. There in the Honorable Supreme Court said, very categorically the Supreme Court said, we need to revisit Section 304 Part A.
Yes.
It was said 12 years back, more than a decade back, right?
Right.
Now what is the stand today? What is there with Section 304A? We can sit here, we can talk for donkey years, we can keep on talking, we can have discussions, we can continue for yonks and yonks. But the point is, the very moot question is that what will happen in this case, even if the matter goes to the sessions court. The Pune police have challenged this particular thing. They have gone to the
Yes.
sessions court. They have challenged the bail or the bail granted to the juvenile. Now the very pertinent question here is, even when the session court has to deal with this particular thing, the session court has to be, the session court has to confine within the parameters of the Juvenile Justice Act. Now, if the Juvenile Justice Act, if it would have been murder, the situation would have been different.
Right.
If it would have been rape, the situation would have been very, very different. We talk about Nivea, we talk about the rest of the cases, the situation was very different.
Right.
But herein, when the person who will be charged only with Section 304A, you tell me how the person would not be granted bail. And what has happened for the past 12 years when the Mr. Bera, he moved on, if my memory serves me right, it was 7 or 8 people who were moved on by that guy. What has
Right.
happened? He was sentenced for 3 years. After that, law did not change. 304A remains as it is. And we expect justice to take place.
304A, Professor Vanjari, need to revisit Section 304A as Rajneesh was suggesting. And why has it taken so long?
Yes, always there is a space of possibility there. And I think nothing is wrong in that to reach or extend this section. But the wording is very clear. Culpable homicide amounting to murder, 304A. The word murder is also there.
Yes.
But this act is out of rash and negligence. Now, I would just add one thing with psychological profiling. As it has been said, yes, it's not merely questioning.
Yes.
As we do in narco cases, it's a
Yes.
phenomena of brain mapping.
Right.
And brain mapping nowadays is called advanced terminology, digital brain mapping, which says the decision-making mechanism, cellular mechanism, decision-making cellular mechanism in the brain is enough mature and is at place. Means
Right.
not deviated or not, the child is not mandabuddhi and all this
Yes.
kind of thing comes. Now, second factor in this case, which corroborate very much to this fact, the vehicle was at the speed of 230 kilometers per hour at the time of accident.
Right.
Now, 230 has not been suddenly gone. The person driving, the juvenile, so-called juvenile,
Yeah.
was in charge of the vehicle and he was increasing speed, maybe 70,
Yeah.
80, 100, 150, 200 and it became 230. So he was quite sure that let me drive with a higher speed.
Right.
Drink and he was drunken, that is another one more dimension we can
Yes.
take into consideration scientifically through medical and forensic experts. Their views will contribute a valid input. I think in this case, not only scientific, not only digital, the circumstantial and other all evidences which are responsible for such kind of heinous act where the two people have lost their life.
Right.
And as it has been pointed out rightly, that there is a time, we are in modern era, there is
Yes.
a time to look forward to extend the application and operational utility of Section 304A.
Right. Absolutely. A fit case for Section 304A in this case, Ashok.
I'll just like
Yeah.
to add to what was just said, See, if you look at the difference between 304A
Yeah.
and 304 Part 2,
Right.
there is a word which differentiates both these sections. In 304 Part 2, there is a word called intention.
Right.
Now, when you make out a case against an individual saying that 304 Part 2 offence is made out, which is heavier offence,
Yeah.
where the provision of law says that you cause death,
Right.
and by your actions, when you had the knowledge or intention that your actions will cause death,
Yeah.
and it carries a higher punishment of up to 10 years in jail.
Yes.
So here, when we deal with this case, it's a hypothetical situation, you know, where we're dealing with a case where this young 17-year-old kid is high on alcohol, sits in his, supercharged vehicle.
Yes.
And he's driving at 230 kilometers as said by
Right.
one of the panelists. Here, the problem is, how do you prove that he had the intention or knowledge? The kid was already drunk,
Yes. Inebriated. or
inebriated,
Driving under influence.
influence of alcohol.
Yeah.
How do you make out a case? Although there are instances
Yes.
where, you know, even if you are drunk, the responsibility is higher on the person who's drunk
Right.
to avoid using the vehicle.
Yes.
But here we are dealing with a minor, not an adult.
Right. Absolutely. Very peculiar case
Yeah.
here.
Facts
and
of the
Professor
cases are very
Vanjari.
peculiar.
Yes. Yes, Professor Anjari.
One last sentence I will
Yes.
add. Very valid point has been touched up by Mr. Ashok. Intention and having knowledge.
Yes.
Having knowledge of rash and negligent which likely to cause the death.
Right.
There is absolutely no connection with intention. He has
Yes.
no intention. He has not followed the bike and he has not given them dash intentionally to kill. It is
Yes.
true. But he had a knowledge. Anybody for that case would have been on the road, would have
Right.
been killed by this accident. This is obvious. Having knowledge that my act is likely to cause not damage but death of human being, it is
Right.
enough, I
Right.
think.
Absolutely. That's the knowledge of that act will be enough, Ashok. The fact that this boy knew very well that when he stepped on that accelerator and turned his car into a cruise missile, heading down Pune's crowded roads, this is what his act would have caused, and this is indeed what's happened. We have two grieving families left in the wake of this tragedy of drinking, driving, an adolescent who probably didn't know the impact of what he caused, but in the end, it's left us all debating something that we've seen with increased frequency on India's roads. As India's roads expand, more affluent Indians are able to afford the kind of vehicles that are being seen on these roads, and these vehicles are causing death, destruction, and leaving behind grieving families. But this is the phenomenon that we're looking at, brash kids and killer cars, and we'll be looking at this Pune case very closely to see if it's going to be any different from the cases that we've seen in the past. But thank you very much, Professor Vanjari, Rajneesh, and my colleague Ashok Bagare for joining us this evening to talk on brash kids and killer cars. If you were to remake Tom Cruise's 1986 movie Top Gun today using all the original aircraft from that movie, the only country you could do it in would be Iran. Iran still uses the same F-14 Tomcat aircraft used in Top Gun. In fact, the helicopter that crashed on the 19th of May, killing the Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi, was a US-made Bell 212, which first flew in 1968. It was sold by the US to Iran before the 1979 Iranian Revolution. Now, the Tehran regime has been under Western sanctions for decades now, leading to questions about the maintenance of their state-of-the-art, then state-of-the-art Air Force. But first, let's look at the 5 vintage aircraft Iran has been flying since 1979. First up, we have the McDonnell Douglas F-14 Tomcat. This is an aircraft that flew in the 1960s. Iran had one of the largest fleets of F-14s outside of the United States. And this, of course, was the aircraft that Tom Cruise flew in Top Gun. It's flying only in Iran. Next, you have the F-4 Phantom. This is another fighter aircraft that most of the world air forces have phased out. At one point, the Israeli Air Force too had this aircraft. Today, Iran is one of the few air forces in the world that still flies this aircraft from the 1960s. Next, you have the Northrop F-5 Tiger. Now, this is the aircraft that was used in Top Gun as the fictional MiG-28, but the F-5 is an aircraft that, again, most of the air forces of the world have phased out. The Iranian Air Force still flies it. Next, you have the Boeing CH-47 Chinook. Now, this, bear in mind, is an aircraft that has been in continuous production for almost half a century. The Indian Air Force recently bought them, brand new variants of them, but the Iranian Air Force Chinooks are pre-1979. They're almost 4.5 decades old. And finally, you have the Augusta 206 and the 212. These are helicopters made in Canada and the United States that was supplied to the Iranian Air Force pre-1979. They had large numbers of them, and indeed this 212 helicopter was the helicopter that President Raisi was flying when it crashed in northwestern Iran in bad weather. And the point of talking about all these vintage aircraft is the fact that Iran lost its president, its foreign minister. They were flying in a very outdated aircraft, over 4 decades old. There was a question mark on their maintenance, their airworthiness, the fact that high-tech aircraft need spares, servicing, maintenance. And joining me to talk about this today, Group Captain V.N. Jha, formerly of the Indian Air Force, and my colleague Nivriti Mohan. Group Captain Jha, welcome to the News9 Plus show.
Thank you.
I just spoke about all the aircraft that Iran operates, possesses, the Iranian Air Force. It's a time capsule really of what frontline US fighter combat and helicopter capability was in the 1960s and the 1970s. Tell us what a challenge it is to maintain an aircraft fleet like this from the 70s when your country, Iran, is under the biggest number of global sanctions.
Yes, it's a great challenge to maintain a vintage aircraft. But mind you, this was the bone of contention when Iran was trying to launch an attack into Israel.
Right.
And we had all of the same view that Iranian aircraft cannot go to Israel.
Yes.
Either they are not capable of going up to Israel, or they will be shot down much before they enter the airspace of that. So Iran has got a problem, and this problem is mainly due to the sanctions that they have had. That's the debilitating sanctions onto Iran.
Right.
But coming back to the crash that we are going to talk of.
Yes.
In aviation,
yes,
it is an aircraft that we fly. I can tell you because I have conducted at least 6 helicopter aircraft accident.
Yes.
Fatal aircraft accident. So I know what all happens. See, most of the countries, they have a very clean policy onto the aviation.
Yes.
Take the aircraft only when it is fully serviceable.
Yes.
Partially serviceable, if it is not incapacitating the flight, you may take it onto the feedbacks of the last sortie.
Right.
How it had performed, what were those problems. If it is not affecting the performance of the engine or airframe or the controls,
yes,
you do intend to take a aircraft for that. But President's aircraft, entourage of 3 aircrafts that have gone through.
Right.
We are talking of the Bell 212 that we call it.
Yes.
It is the Bell Mark II version 12.
Right.
That they have, I think, some 10 to 12 aircraft they have left over of that. I'm sure they will be having a problems of maintenance.
Right.
But very fact that those 3 helicopters were signed off fit for flying, airworthy,
right.
I don't have any reason to disbelieve those maintenance crew.
Yes.
Because there were 3 aircraft.
Right.
If one aircraft had a doubt, the second aircraft President would have put there. Right. So I straightway don't have any problem into this. But then, the aircrafts do have accidents, and we don't have to go much far. We remember our own General Bipin Rawat.
Yes.
He was in the state-of-the-art modern Mi-17 B5 aircraft. That's a brand new aircraft, and that had met with the
It
accident.
crashed in inclement weather. Right? It was flying into Kunur when the weather had packed up, and it was a dense kind of pea soup
Actually,
condition.
you know what happens in most of the aircraft that we fly VFR. VFR is the visual flying regulation. That is the
Yes.
daytime flying. We do the DR, direct recce of the ground beneath
Yes.
us, and then we fly the aircraft with that. We have got
Right.
two controls. One is the cyclic. One is the collective. Collective is on the left hand, that gives the
Yes.
airlift, and cyclic is the one which gives the direction. So we have the basic controls onto these aircraft. Bell 212 is a single engine aircraft.
Yes.
So if something goes wrong into that engine, then they have very little time to respond.
Yes.
Secondly, in the flying in the mountains, I can tell you there are plenty of challenges, and two of those challenges are the updrafts and the downdrafts,
Yes.
especially in the noon time,
Right.
after 11 o'clock till about 3 o'clock or so. Those updraft or downdrafts, these are killing. We have had also many of the accidents in the Himalayan range.
Yes.
But of course, Himalayan range cannot be compared with the type of terrain that Iran has. But nonetheless, if there was a updraft or downdraft, if the aircraft has got entangled into that downdraft,
Yeah.
there's a very little room for the pilot to recover that aircraft
Right.
from the downdraft. That
Right.
is second thing. Third thing, what we recollect from the details that is coming from Iran is
Yes.
that the weather was not good.
Yes.
Visibility was poor.
Right.
It was raining. So, as I told you, we do the DR, that is the VFR flying.
Yes.
We look at the ground and then we continue flying. The moment we have slightest doubt that
Yeah.
we are going to enter a cloud patch or a weather,
Right.
we turn back. Either we divert the course of the aircraft,
Yes.
or we come back. We make a U-turn and then we come back.
Right.
So those are the instructions with the VIP aircraft.
Yeah.
We know President was on board there. So these were the clear facts. So when anyone says that so-and-so aircraft has met with the accident, I, being by
Yes.
virtue of having served in the Air Force, having done so many aircraft investigations, I know there are thumb rules also, with some exceptions.
Yeah.
Thumb rules are there that almost 3/4 of the accidents
Right.
are human error accidents.
Right.
And then they are the maintenance related, organizational related, but most of the fatal accidents
Yes.
are not a single element accident. It is the mosaic of the picture.
There's a
Many things
mosaic
have
of
happened at the same time.
factors. So tell us, in this
Many-
case, Group Captain Jha, what could be the mosaic of factors? The Iranians have put out a statement saying it was technical reasons that caused the air crash. You mentioned, adverse weather being one of them. What are the other possible factors that could have come in? Could maintenance have been, an issue here? And there's one other factor I want to ask you is that we know that it is. We have organizations in India which are flying, intelligence organizations which are flying aircraft that are over 60 years old. There's a
Yes.
Boeing 707 that's flying with, it's flown by the Air Force. It's not part of the Air Force, but which is over 60 years old. I've seen it myself with my own eyes at New Delhi airport, and it's remarkable how that aircraft is still flying. It looks brand new. There is the other thing of continued spares and support in the case of that Boeing aircraft. How important is it to have an uninterrupted line of spares for, say, like a Bell 212 kind of thing, which allows you to not only maintain it, but also upgrade the helicopter with modern, digital cockpits and those kind of things?
Very right question, very pertinent questions. What happens, the serviceability of the aircraft is something which is non-compromisable.
Right.
If there is a seat which is slightly roughed up, or one
Yes.
stitch is missing from somewhere, or something has gone, those are the non-critical parts of the aircraft that we
Yes.
can take chances.
Right.
And we know that Bell 212, they wouldn't have been able to get the spares, the type of spares that is
Yes.
there. They would have, we call it cannibalization. Of the
Cannibalization,
spare.
absolutely.
That is the old aircraft, we
Yes.
retrieve some of the parts, and then we check it whether it is absolutely fine or
Yes.
it is not fine. If it is absolutely fine, the cannibalized part, we use for the spare aircraft that we have got, or any other aircraft as a spare, we have got that. So similar things must be happening with the Iran.
They must
also
be cannibalizing their Bell fleet.
Absolutely,
to
absolutely.
Keep these
So
running in.
very fact that these 3 aircrafts have been signed, flying fit, airworthy on that day morning when Mr. Raisi was going to that border area with the dam inaugurations with the Azerbaijani counterpart. So I have no doubt that the aircraft would have been fit. But then anything can go wrong with the even serviceable aircraft. It's a flying machine.
Of course.
And the single engine aircraft have got very small room for maneuvering.
Absolutely.
You know, once you lose the engine, and Bell aircraft is only 2 rotors.
Right.
You know, so the moment you lose power, even say 10% or 15%, you tend to fall down like a stone.
Absolutely.
Now, what mosaic of the picture I was going to talk to you. That this aircraft is flying in the unknown time. We have seen the site of the accident on the photograph. It seems to be, you know, upslope where it has gone and hit. Secondly, if there was a downdraft, air, you know, it's the air. The air goes like, you know, warm air goes up there and then comes down. So coming down, if the helicopter is getting trapped into that coming down downdraft, it will come down. Suppose even if it comes down, say by about 2,000 feet or something like that. And if the aircraft is flying at a you know, altitude which is just about 1,000 feet or 500 feet above the ridge line, then there is a problem.
There is catastrophe. Absolutely.
Then there is a problem because this helicopter has got the capacity of 12 to 14 passengers. And if there was a number of the passengers which was adequately enough, then pulling up from that downdraft becomes almost
becomes
impossible.
a challenge. Absolutely.
And then you are going to go and dash into those up slope or directly full power into it. And that's what apparently seems to be the case, because I can see the tail which has gone and done 180 degree. It is lying on the other side, upside, and the remaining part of the fuselage is completely broken, burned,
shattered,
and it is into the pieces. So this is the first look of it. What is mentioning that the pilot has made an error of a judgment in the inclement weather. The visibility couldn't have been very good, and secondly, he has possibly got caught into that, you know, downdrafts or something of the air density, which is not adequate for the air lift to be maintained there. And thirdly, if there was a drop in the engine power, that does happen, you know, 10 to 15%, we always keep a reserve. That is why we are always in the mountains, we are always on the collective of the helicopter, just to manage that particular part.
Absolutely.
So this is what I was trying to tell you, the mosaic picture. If any of this 2 or 3 event would have happened, then the aircraft is going to get into the problems.
Absolutely.
So,
fabulous, you know, narration of the mosaic, Group Captain Jha. But I want to come to my colleague Nivriti Mohan, who's been very patiently listening to you. Nivriti, you've been looking at the Iranian Air Force as well very closely. Tell us what the problems really are. You know, the pre-1979 fleet, and in fact the aircraft behind you, the F-4 Phantom, was recently retired by the Taiwanese Air Force. That it's one of the last air forces that was flying the F-4. The Iranians still keep them flying. What are the challenges uniquely of the Iranian Air Force flying these creaky old aircraft?
Okay, if we start with the Bell 212, you must be knowing that it was for the first time flown in. It flew in 1968. So it's almost 55 years ago. It's a big time span. And then just before 1979, Iran bought it from US, and it was a number of helicopters that they had bought. So now realizing the fact, if this helicopter belongs to the same lot of helicopters that was bought before 1979, then it makes it almost 45 years old helicopter. So apart from all the controversies relating to assassination of the president, this is one angle that cannot be left uninvestigated.
Right, the fact that the technical, whether it was in absolutely airworthy condition, that's what you meant to say. That
all the aircraft that you were talking about, the F-14s, F-4, F-5s, they are they belong to 1970s.
Yes.
And the vintage aircraft MiG-29 from 1980s they've got.
Right.
And then they've got J-7s from China from 1990s. So the air squadrons that they have, they are very old. The aircrafts are old.
Yes.
And it is not that they have not tried to buy new aircraft.
Yeah, it's the sanctions. I think the sanctions make it really difficult for them.
It is the sanctions, and also I have read some reports which say that they were restrained, they were restricted from buying.
Yes.
In one of the reports which cited that US even bought an aircraft at double the rate what Iran was paying to I think it was a Russian aircraft.
Yeah, to prevent it from going into the Iranian hands. But you know, Group Captain Jha, this point that Nivriti made about you know, the conspiracy theory angle in this crash, everyone's been talking about it because, you know, the obvious you know, question is that there are 3 aircraft, all of them flying in adverse conditions in all the you know, challenges that you mentioned, the updraft and the downdraft, mountainous area, weather conditions, weather packing up, and only the helicopter of the president goes down. The other 2 aircraft managed to make it safely back to base. Tell us why you think it, you know, everything was in order in this case, and it doesn't seem to be you know, a secret service agency that got the president of Iran.
Well, you know, with the VIP entourage, we always have a spare aircraft, either in the tow or in the lead, wherever you want to have it there. So that is one thing. But one aircraft going down and other 2 coming back, there is nothing unusual about it. We've had so many. You know, I have flown into an aircraft. I was in the lead. The trail aircraft has met with some circumstances that you can't predict. But what Nivriti was trying to say is very genuine things. You know, maintaining the aircraft becomes very difficult. But you know, we call something like a flight safety maintenance hygiene. And with that hygiene, what we mean is we pay utmost regard to the flight safety issues with the maintenance part of it. And in the maintenance, after every sortie that we come back, we do the LFS, you know, last flight safety after we have come back from flight. There are few things that we have observed during the flying. Suppose if there's a vibration, if there's a you know, some sort of loss of aerodynamic capability or control, we log onto a logbook. And just a glance at the logbook, you know what sort of problems this aircraft has been facing in the last many sorties. And if there is a problem encountered, we log it there, and then the maintenance crew, they take it for the servicing. They do the servicing, and they offer, by and large, to another experienced test flight test pilot who do a test flying before taking this aircraft for any operations. So these are the maintenance hygiene that we observe in the aircraft. So I don't disbelieve that the Iranian also would be doing a similar thing, but there would be pressure and, you know, other things onto the maintenance crew of the Iran, because there was no other helicopter, and the president's commitment was there to go that area.
But to Azerbaijan.
All the same, again, I come back to the first original question. If the aircraft was not flight worthy, then that aircraft wouldn't have been offered. Secondly, if one aircraft was in the doubt, then the other 2 aircraft of the entourage, that aircraft would have been offered to that.
Automatically
so
taken over,
on the first glance, I don't go by the conspiracy theory, but you know, we follow a doctor's rule in the investigation. If you sneeze once, first doubt that there will be some irritant in the air with which you have sneezed. We straightway don't go to the Xi Jinping, that Wuhan virus and something would have come there, and that is how you have gone to the sneeze. So we go by that perspective in the aircraft accident. So here there are the mosaic theory is well fitting, though while doing the investigation, we keep all possibilities on the table.
Right.
But then we go first by first. What
Yes.
flight I was doing, where
Right.
I was doing, what was the terrain, what was the visibility, how
Right.
was my aircraft, how was I was heading. So all those things, and then as a pilot,
Yes.
you intend to think that yes, I was on the course. I should blame anything else the last. First thing is the weather was there, the afternoon air that is
yes.
downdraft or the updraft. That
Right.
could have been a possibility. And in the bad weather, the decision making becomes a little tricky.
Yes.
If you have got the president behind you,
Yeah.
and you have got that borderline weather conditions,
Yes.
whether to go or not to go, you are not very sure. Then you try to push through. That
Right.
okay, let me go a little forward. It's the VFR flying.
Yes.
Let me go a little forward and see if it is fine. I'll negotiate through. If it is not, then I'll come back.
Right.
So those are bit of pressures are there on the pilot flying the VIP aircraft.
Yes.
If it was any other aircraft, it would have turned back. But
Right.
the president, with his
Absolutely.
commitment, he tried to meet that.
Yes.
But then
So-
you have got the trail aircraft.
Right.
The moment you have a feel that no, my aircraft cannot go through this.
Right.
Then if there is a engine problem or some mechanical problem, technical problem,
Yeah.
immediately you convey to the next aircraft that we are making forced landing here, so and so place. This is the reason, and we will ask the president to change the aircraft,
Yes.
and you take the president thereafter.
Right,
Those
absolutely. Yeah.
possibilities-
So, yes, and finally, in conclusion, I'm afraid we are completely out of time, Group Captain Jha. Fascinating discussion there. We're going to come back to you for this, more on this, but my observation is, and bear me out on this, Nivriti, the fact that Iran had the ability to launch a 300 cruise missile, ballistic missile, drone attack on Israel, but when it finally came to the crunch, the president's VVIP transportation, they had old aircraft, and finally when that aircraft went missing for 12 hours, 13 hours, it was a Turkish long-range drone with IR sensors that actually finally located the wreckage. So here is the pitfalls of depending too much on foreign external sources, and this was something that you would understand with your series on arming and aiming, the need to indigenize and indigenize with a vengeance. Otherwise, you're dependent on foreign countries for your fighter fleets, for your aircraft and your transportation fleets, as Iran is now discovering and possibly asking these kind of questions, as Iran's creaky air force is in the news again. But thank you very much, Group Captain Jha, for joining us this evening, and my colleague Nivriti Mohan, as we talk about the factors, the mosaic of factors that could have gone in causing President Raisi's crash, and one of those crashes that's changed the trajectory of political history. AI tools can be designed to detect greenhouse gases from pipelines, monitor deforestation, contribute to the design of novel materials that slow down the rate of climate change. Here's the flip side. How much energy does AI actually consume in achieving these benefits? The AI Pac-Man effect, the energy gobbler. Our News9 Plus long-form story takes a closer look at the huge carbon footprint that AI leaves behind. Dropping on the News9 Plus app, do download and watch.
We will consume electricity. As a underlying technology, its consumption is only grown and will keep on growing.
If you look at the amount of the GPUs, amount of the power and the processing required to train some of these large models into that one, right? Data centers are already a large consumer of power across the globe.
There'll be no Pac-Man effect because of AI. What AI will do is improve the quality of life for everybody.